Home Secretary Yvette has announced new government-backed local inquiries into grooming gangs, following mounting pressure for a national investigation. The announcement came during her common statement this afternoon, addressing weeks of calls for action on child sexual exploitation. Several Labour MPs, including those representing Rotherham, Rochdale and Liverpool-Walton, had broken ranks with party leadership to demand a national probe. The issue gained renewed attention after it emerged that Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips had declined a request for government assistance with an inquiry in Oldham. In today's video, we will watch and react to this speech, all whilst going over all of the latest headlines from across the country. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and join our fast-growing community. Just a quick one to say we do have new One Keir t-shirts available on our website. Go to britishstand.com or check the link in the description. As stated in the intro, have a watch.
Forward to tackle the terrible crimes of child sexual exploitation and abuse, including mandatory reporting, a new victims and survivors panel, an overhaul of data and police performance requirements, tougher sentences for perpetrators and support for local inquiries, including in Oldham. The Safeguarding Minister is this morning meeting with survivors from Oldham, and earlier this week she and I met Professor Alexis Jay, who chaired both the 7-year National Independent Inquiry into child sexual abuse and the first local independent inquiry into grooming gangs in Rotherham. Professor Jay's strongest message to us was that the survivors who bravely testified to terrible crimes committed against them must not be left to feel that their efforts were in vain, because despite all the inquiries, no one listened and nothing was done. So following those discussions, I therefore want to update the House on our next steps, both to take forward inquiry recommendations and to go further in tackling sexual exploitation and grooming on the streets and online to keep children safe. The Independent National Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse completed its final report in 2022. It took 7 years, heard 7,000 personal testimonies and considered 2 million pages of evidence. They were devastating accounts of brutal rapes, sexual violence, humiliation, trauma, betrayal of vulnerable children by those charged with protecting them, and people in positions of power who shamefully put the reputation of institutions before the protection of children. The inquiry included separate detailed reports on organised child abuse in residential homes and schools, abuse and cover-ups in the Catholic and Anglican churches, and a 2-year inquiry published in February 2022 into child sexual exploitation by organised networks and grooming gangs, which itself examined over 400 recommendations made by previous inquiries and serious case reviews, as well as taking further evidence of its own. And there have been further reports since then, including on Telford and on police performance. But despite all those national inquiries, reports, and hundreds of recommendations, far too little action has been taken. And shamefully little progress has been made. That has to change. So before Easter, the government will lay out a clear timetable for taking forward the 20 recommendations from the final ICSA inquiry report. 4 of those are specifically for the Home Office, and I can confirm we have accepted them in full, including on disclosure and barring, and work on these is already underway. A cross-government ministerial group is considering and working through remaining recommendations, and that group will be supported by our new Victims and Survivors panel. In addition, I can confirm today that the government will implement all the remaining recommendations in the Child Abuse Inquiry's separate standalone report on grooming gangs from February 22, including updating key department education guidance. So let me turn to the areas where we need to go further. As I said last week, the most important task should be to increase police investigations into these horrific crimes and get abusers behind bars. We will introduce stronger sentences for child grooming, making it an aggravating factor to organise abuse and exploitation. And I can announce new action today to help victims get more investigations and prosecutions underway. I'm extending the remit of the Independent Child Sexual Abuse Review Panel, so it covers not just historic cases before 2013, but all cases since, so that any victim of abuse will have the right to seek an independent review without having to go back to the local institutions who decided not to proceed with their case. I'm writing today to the National Police Chiefs Council to ask all Chief Constables to look again at historic gang exploitation cases where no further action was taken, and to work with the Police Child Sexual Exploitation Task Force to pursue new lines of inquiry and reopen investigations where appropriate. And these new measures will be backed by £2 million additional funding for the task force and the panel. And all police forces will be expected to implement the 2023 recommendations from His Majesty's Inspectorate, including producing problem profiles on the nature of grooming gangs in their area. And I have asked the Inspectorate to review progress this year. But as well as reviewing past cases, we also need much stronger action to uncover the full scale and nature of these awful crimes. The Child Sexual Exploitation Police Task Force, led by the National Police Chiefs Council, has estimated that out of the 115,000 child sexual abuse offences recorded by the police in 2023, around 4,000 involved more than one perpetrator. Of those, they identify around 1,100 that involved abuse within the family, over 300 involving abuse in institutions, and they identified 717 reported cases of group or gang-related child sexual exploitation. But we know the vast majority of abuse goes unreported, so we expect all of those figures to be a significant underestimate. The task force reports there are currently 127 major police investigations underway on child sexual exploitation and gang grooming across 29 different police forces. Many major investigations have involved Pakistani heritage gangs, and the police task force evidence also shows exploitation and abuse taking place across many different communities and ethnicities. But the data on ethnicity of both perpetrators and victims is still inadequate. As I said last week, we will overhaul the data we expect local areas to collect as part of a new performance management framework. But I've also asked the Child Sexual Exploitation Task Force to immediately expand the ethnicity data it collects and publishes, gathering data from the end of the investigation when a fuller picture is available, not just from the beginning when suspects may not yet have been identified.
What are your thoughts on this? Let me know down in the comment section below. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer is in Ukraine today for the signing of a 100-year partnership to show Britain's steadfast support for the embattled country. The PM arrived by train in the capital Kyiv, where he is set to announce the new long-term partnership alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The deal is set to boost military collaboration on maritime security and will bring together experts in areas including drone technology, a key feature of the grueling war, which has nearly crossed the 3-year mark. While Zelensky has previously suggested he would use the talks to push for British troops to be deployed to Ukraine as peacekeepers following any ceasefire deal with Putin. Starmer said on social media, "Peace through strength." I'm in Kyiv with a simple message to the people of Ukraine. Our 100-year partnership is a promise that we are with you, not just today or tomorrow, but for 100 years, long after this war is over and Ukraine is free and thriving once again. And in an earlier swipe at Russia, the PM said, Putin's ambition to wrench Ukraine away from its closest partners has been a monumental strategic failure. Instead, we are closer than ever, and this partnership will take that friendship to the next level. This is not just about the here and now, it is also about an investment in our two countries for the next century, bringing together technology development, scientific advances and cultural exchanges, and harnessing the phenomenal innovation shown by Ukraine in recent years for generations to come. The power of our long-term friendships cannot be underestimated. Supporting Ukraine to defend itself from Russia's barbaric invasion and rebuild a prosperous, sovereign future is vital to this government's foundation of security and our plan for change. Through this partnership, we are creating a strong economy that works for the British people, a safe country that protects our interests at home and abroad, and a prosperous society. The foreign trip is Starmer's 17th separate overseas engagement as Prime Minister, with Ukraine the 17th different country or territory he has visited. And it has been met with cross-party support. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge said, "I'm pleased that the Prime Minister is visiting Ukraine and taking forward the 100-year partnership initiated and planned when we were in government. This reaffirms our strong consensus to do everything possible to support Ukraine." Since the start of the war in February 2022, the UK has given Ukraine almost £13 billion in military support, aid and energy infrastructure investment. While that sum pales in comparison to the US's $63.5 billion, £52 billion funding drive, the impending return of Donald Trump to the White House has sparked concerns in Ukraine that their cash flow could be cut. German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius also travelled to Ukraine 2 days ago, with European leaders weighing up what security guarantees they can provide as part of any peace agreement that may be pushed by a Trump administration. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.